Hello, everyone. So let's talk about exercise and physical activity, talking about the highlights from chapter 13. Okay, so I have a question for all of you. What is the difference between physical activity and exercise? Well, physical activity is any movement that produces an increase in energy expenditure. So physical activity could be something like, we're walking to our mailbox to pick up our mail, or maybe we're walking our dog around the block. We're brushing our hair, we're brushing our teeth, we're washing dishes. Literally any bodily movement that produces an increase in energy expenditure. And then we have exercise. Exercise is planned, structured movement with the intent that we are either going to maintain or increase our physical fitness level. So if we're looking at our little weekly exercise log here, we have cardio and resistance training. We are planning structured cardio workouts on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Maybe we're going to go for a run around our local high school track for 45 minutes. And then on Monday and Thursday, we are going to perform full body resistance training in order to maintain our level of muscular fitness. Okay, let's talk about some major categories of exercise. First, we have aerobic exercise. And the word aerobic literally means with oxygen. So aerobic exercise, also known as cardio, so we're performing this type of exercise for at least 4 minutes or longer. Cardio type of activities are very rhythmic and dynamic, so doing things like walking, jogging, running, dancing, swimming, cycling. Maybe you're on the Stairmaster at your local gym for an hour. That is aerobic exercise. And then moving on to anaerobic exercise, the word anaerobic means without oxygen. And traditional anaerobic exercise would be something like sprinting. You sprint 100 meters, and then you relax, you rest for a few minutes, and then you go and you do it again. Another type of anaerobic training would be something like interval training, where we are performing really intense activities followed by either complete rest or low intensity activity. A really popular type of interval training is called high intensity interval training, also known as HIIT. And there are a few different ways that we can practice HIIT training. A really popular form of HIIT training is something called a Tabata. And a Tabata is 20 seconds of high intensity activity followed by 10 seconds of rest, really more like a transition period. You perform that 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for a total of 8 rounds. And that total time, you're actually going to be doing that one Tabata for about 4 minutes. Super fun, by the way, if you've never done it. Moving on to resistance training. So resistance training can be body weight exercises, so things like squats, push-ups, burpees. This also includes lifting weights, whether we're using kettlebells, dumbbells, barbells, or pieces of gym equipment. We can also use other pieces of non-traditional equipment, things like resistance bands and such. But anything that can provide a little bit of resistance is going to help improve our muscular fitness level. Okay, let's talk about the principles of physical fitness, starting off with what physical fitness is and then following up with basic training principles. So what is physical fitness? Physical fitness is the ability to do one's work and have energy remaining for recreational activities. We have 5 health-related components of physical fitness: muscular strength, muscular endurance, cardiorespiratory endurance, flexibility, and body composition. So muscular strength is the ability of a muscle group to exert maximal amount of force, and we measure this with a 1 repetition maximum. Muscular endurance is the ability for a muscle to continue to contract without undue fatigue. We can also measure muscular endurance by how long we can hold a muscle contraction. So how long we can perform a plank, for example. That is another really great test for muscular endurance. Then we have cardiorespiratory endurance, the ability of the cardiovascular and respiratory system to supply oxygenated blood to the working skeletal muscles during exercise. Flexibility is the available motion that we have at a specific joint. And then body composition is the body's relative amounts of fat and fat-free mass. Okay, moving on, talking about basic training principles. All of these principles can be applied in order to improve your physical fitness level. So first we have overload. Overload is needed because our bodies must be stressed beyond what is accustomed in order to bring about a desired training adaptation. We want to make sure that we are overloading ourselves gradually. We don't want to do too much too soon. So gradual progression is really, really important when it comes to overload. Because sometimes when we do too much too soon, we tend to overtrain. And overtraining, we are either training too much too quickly, there's too much intensity, or we are not taking enough rest in between training sessions. So just with overload, again, we want to make sure that it's nice and gradual. Moving on to specificity. So specificity literally means that our training needs to be specific. We want to train the way that we want our body to change. So if we have a goal to run a half marathon, that means that we need to run. Our training program needs to involve a lot of cardio, specifically running, so we can do well when we perform, when we go run in that half marathon race. If we want to increase our muscle mass, then we have to lift weights. If we want to become more flexible, then we have to stretch. So the training needs to be specific. Moving on to regularity and reversibility. So regularity, we are performing exercise on a regular basis. If we do not exercise on a regular basis, cardio needs to be performed at least 3 to 5 times per week. Weight training, a minimum of 2 to 3 times per week on non-consecutive days if we're training our whole body. But without this regular stress, we are not going to be able to make these positive adaptations to our physical fitness. And then we have reversibility. So reversibility kind of goes hand in hand with regularity. If we aren't using our physical fitness on a regular basis, those training adaptations are going to go away. So if we don't use it, you are going to lose it. And just on like my little picture that I have on the screen here, the before and the after, you can see that upper arm muscle, that bicep muscle got significantly smaller. That is called atrophy. And usually that occurs to lack of training for, maybe that person got sick, or maybe they haven't had access to weights in a while for whatever reason. Okay, moving on to something called the FIT principle. So we can use those basic training principles that I just went over, and we can manipulate overload and specificity well, overload can be manipulated with intensity as well. I'll show you an example. So for the FIT principle, the FIT stands for frequency, intensity, time, and type. So we can use this principle again to manipulate the overload. We can manipulate how much stress we're applying to our body with the frequency. Are we exercising 3 times a week, or are we going to try to increase that to a 4th time next week? The intensity, let's say we are manipulating the speed of our training run, and today we're going to make it a little bit more intense, and we're going to run at a faster pace. The time, are we running for 30 minutes? Are we running for 45 minutes? Are we running for an hour? So this speaks to the duration. And the type is the type of activity that we're performing. So again, all of those basic training principles, overload, specificity, regularity, reversibility, we can manipulate that by manipulating this FIT principle. Okay, really important, I wanted to talk about exercise in older adults, just because exercise is so important for everybody. If you don't exercise, I highly encourage you to start now, because as we start to age, our body is going to start to break down a little bit. By participating in regular exercise, this can help slow down our aging process. Regular exercise for older adults can help them stay independent, and it can help maintain their balance, because as we get older, we start to lose our balance, our coordination, and our speed. And when this starts to happen, we are more susceptible to falling, and we don't want that to happen, because when older adults fall, they are at a greater risk of fracture, specifically pelvic fracture. And it enhances overall wellness and social health, specifically when they're performing exercise with others. As older adults start to age, they don't get as much social contact with others, and exercise is actually a really great way for them to socialize and be around others, maintain that social support. I just wanted to show you all a few examples of some really amazing older adults. So this first picture here, if you follow my teal mouse, this is Julia Hurricane Hawkins. In this photo, she is 101 years old, and she actually holds the record for her age group for the fastest 100-meter dash. And I think she ran it in a little over 40 seconds. It was 40.12 seconds. She is currently 104 years old, and I hear that she is still exercising and still going strong. This gentleman over here in the upper right-hand corner, this is Jacinto Bonilla. He is 80 years old in this photo. He is a CrossFitter, and he is famous for his birthday WOD. This is his birthday WOD, by the way. So every birthday, on his birthday, he performs all of these movements, and this is his birthday workout of the day. So this coming year, I believe he's going to be 81. So instead of 80 double unders, 80 air squats, and 80 so on, it'll be the age that he's turning. So it'll be 81, which is pretty cool. And then this woman down here in the corner, this is Sister Madonna Boudère, and her nickname is the Iron Nun. She is currently 89 years old, I believe. And she is responsible for creating the oldest age group in the Ironman triathlon. Sister Madonna, the Iron Nun, she is an awesome example of someone who didn't become physically active until she was in her late 40s. So she actually didn't start exercising regularly until she was in her late 40s, and she completed her first triathlon ever when she was in her early 50s. So you don't have to be young in order to start exercising. You can literally start exercising at any age, but it is really important that you start now. I know many of us are close to the age of 30. By the time we turn 30, every decade after we turn 30, we actually start to lose 10% of our muscle mass. We want to try to preserve that as much as we can. So make sure that you, start being physically active now, start exercising, make that a regular habit for yourself. And finally, why is exercise a part of stress management? Well, first, it helps us stay healthy. It improves our physical health in so many ways. It helps us improve our body composition. It helps us improve our metabolism, helps improve our cholesterol levels and our lipid levels. It improves our mental health, because exercise makes people happy. And actually in the United Kingdom, exercise is now being prescribed as a part of the antidepressant regimen for those that come in that they're diagnosed with depression. And it also helps ward off against disease. So it helps us, try to, what am I trying to say here? It helps us in terms of, diabetes, hypokinetic diseases, high blood pressure, helps us ward off those specific diseases. And then finally, exercise can be an outlet for some of us, literally a physical way to release our stress. And it helps specifically once we've reached that physiological arousal stage of the stress model. And for some of us, it can specifically help decrease muscular tension that we might be carrying in our shoulders or in our upper back, for example.